It was late November 1970. A cold, quiet Sunday afternoon in the hills outside Bergen, Norway. A man and his two daughters were hiking through a secluded area of the Isdalen Valley, place locals had nicknamed Death Valley, for its eerie history of suicides and tragic hiking accidents, but nothing could have prepared them for what they stumbled upon. There, lying awkwardly among the rocks and moss, was the charred body of a woman. Her arms were bent upward, almost as if frozen in mid-defense. Her entire front was burned, but bizarrely, the back of her body was untouched. Nearby, scattered around her, were a number of strange items: a plastic water bottle, a packed lunch, a fur hat that had been partially scorched, and a handful of sleeping pills. Even more disturbing, there were no signs of anyone else nearby. No blood trail, no footprints in the fresh forest soil. Just silence and a smell of gasoline lingering in the air. It looked like a scene from a war zone, not a quiet Norwegian forest. When police arrived, the mystery deepened. The body had no form of identification. There was no wallet, no purse, no passport. Even the labels from her clothes had been meticulously cut out. It was as if someone had tried to erase her. But who would do that, and why leave the body in such a visible spot? Investigators couldn't understand how she had ended up there, or why she would carry so many personal items only to be burned along with them. Her jewelry had been carefully placed beside her body, not worn, an odd detail that suggested ritual or perhaps guilt. But the strangest part? Her face was almost unrecognizable, not just burned but contorted, as if she had experienced something far more violent than a peaceful death. And with no ID and no known origin, one thing was immediately clear to Norwegian authorities. Whoever this woman was, she didn't want to be found. 2 days after the body was found, investigators uncovered their first major lead: a pair of suitcases left behind at the Bergen railway station, tagged but never claimed. Inside was a bizarre assortment of items, nothing illegal, but everything felt off. There were clothes, wigs, makeup, money from multiple countries, and a prescription for eczema cream, with the label carefully peeled off. There were also glasses with no prescription lenses, likely worn only as a disguise. But perhaps most chilling of all was a small, coded notebook containing a series of seemingly random letters and numbers that police couldn't immediately decipher. Soon they uncovered a pattern. Over the previous few months, the woman had checked into multiple hotels around Norway using at least 9 different fake identities. Sometimes she posed as Belgian. Other times she claimed to be from South Africa. She often used broken English, but she could also speak fluent German, French, and Flemish. At each hotel, she gave different birth dates, occupations, and reasons for travel. Sometimes she stayed just one night, other times a few days. In every case, she used cash. No credit cards, no ID, nothing that could tie her to a real person. Hotel workers remembered her well, despite her efforts to blend in. One described her as elegant but distant. Another recalled how she asked to change rooms multiple times without giving a reason. A clerk remembered her wearing a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses, even at night. And yet she always seemed calm, in control, like she had done this before. Investigators began to wonder, was she running from someone, or simply hiding who she really was? The fake names, the wigs, the multiple passports, and the coded notes all pointed to one terrifying possibility. This woman may have been living a secret life. And if she was, then it was likely someone didn't want that life exposed. As detectives dug deeper into her movements, a pattern started to emerge, one that felt far more deliberate than tragic. The Isdal Woman hadn't just been wandering Europe. She had been circling military zones, nuclear testing sites, and strategic coastal areas. In Norway alone, she had been spotted in and around sensitive military locations near Bergen and Stavanger, both critical points during the height of Cold War tension. One witness even claimed to have seen her watching military exercises through binoculars, standing completely still for hours on a rocky ridge. She told no one why she was there. She carried no visible camera, just a silent presence, observing. It didn't take long for rumors to spiral. Norway at the time was deep in NATO's inner defense network, and Soviet espionage was a constant threat. To many, the puzzle pieces fit too well. The aliases, the cash, the code book, the multilingual fluency, the wigs. Some even pointed out how certain details of her autopsy, like the presence of phenobarbital and carbon monoxide, were consistent with covert intelligence operations involving staged suicides. The theory spread she wasn't a lost traveler. She was a spy. But if she was, who was she working for? And who wanted her gone? Police dismissed the theory publicly. They insisted there was no evidence she had connections to foreign governments. But privately, there were whispers that intelligence agencies had taken an interest. Some officers later admitted they were told to stop digging. Theories surfaced that NATO might have intercepted her, while others believed she was eliminated by her own agency for going rogue. If she had been caught spying, it would have made headlines, embarrassed governments. A quiet cover-up might have been more convenient. One thing was clear: the Isdal woman knew how to disappear, and yet in death she became more visible than ever. The autopsy raised more questions than it answered. Officially, the cause of death was listed as carbon monoxide poisoning, with sleeping pills found in her system, enough to sedate her, but not necessarily kill her outright. There were also signs she had taken phenomal, a barbiturate rarely used outside of medical or military circles. But what stood out most was the condition of her body. The burns were severe but oddly contained. The front of her body was scorched, yet the grass beneath her remained untouched. Her back showed no signs of fire at all. It was almost as if the flames had been directed only at her, not her surroundings. Then came the detail that stunned investigators. Her jaw had been tightly clenched, a position rarely seen in cases of self-inflicted death. It suggested intense stress or possibly paralysis before death. And strangely, her tongue showed signs of trauma, as if something had been forced into her mouth or she had bitten down hard just before dying. The strangest clues weren't found on her body, but in what she carried. In her suitcase was a single earring with no match, traces of a mysterious cream used mostly in southern Europe, and a notepad filled with what looked like travel dates or coded surveillance notes. The code, once cracked, revealed a pattern of cities and numbers that matched her known hotel stays. She had documented every move, but why? Equally strange were the items that were missing. No personal photos, no documents, no books, nothing sentimental, no handwriting samples, no family keepsakes, no keys. It was a life stripped of humanity, just enough to function, but nothing to connect her to a past. Not even fingerprints helped. After weeks of international communication, no one in Europe, no agency, no database could identify her. It's like she had never officially existed. If this was a suicide, why leave behind so many clues that led nowhere? And if it was a murder, why go to such lengths to erase her identity, but not her body? For investigators, it was the ultimate contradiction. A woman who wanted to disappear, but ended up becoming unforgettable. Despite weeks of investigation and international media attention, the trail quickly grew cold. Dozens of tips came in, but none led to a confirmed identity. A breakthrough seemed close when forensic experts studied her teeth and found something unusual: gold-capped dental work, a style rarely used in Norway at the time. Experts believed it matched techniques from Eastern Europe or possibly Germany, narrowing the list of possible origins. But even with dental records from several countries, no match ever surfaced. Language experts studied her accents, gathered from reports by hotel staff and witnesses. Some said she spoke fluent German with an odd dialect. Others noted a soft French accent or something resembling Flemish. One even recalled hearing her speak a bit of English, but none of it was consistent. It was as if she had trained herself to sound like anyone but herself. Then came a more unsettling tip. A man who had met her on a train in Norway weeks before her death claimed she had spoken in code and seemed highly alert, checking exits constantly. She allegedly told him she was a traveling antiques dealer from South Africa, one of her many fake backstories. He believed her at first, but after hearing about her death, he contacted police, convinced he had spoken to a woman on the run. Investigators tried to trace her final movements. Surveillance wasn't what it is today, but hotel ledgers, train records, and witness accounts helped paint a rough timeline. She had traveled from Paris to Hamburg, then into Oslo, Bergen, and Stavanger. She had checked into multiple hotels under different names, sometimes changing rooms without explanation. She used public lockers at stations, always alone, always distant. But each time a lead appeared to open a door, it slammed shut. The code in her diary, cracked but meaningless without knowing who she was. The strange cream in her bag, identified but mass-produced across Europe. The one earring, no significance. The fake names, all dead ends. It was as though the woman had planned her own vanishing, or someone had planned it for her. And as police began to run out of evidence, a deeper fear set in. What if she wasn't missing from a database? Because she was never supposed to be in one to begin with. For decades, the Isdal Woman's story remained frozen in time, a tragic anomaly buried under red tape and forgotten memories. But in recent years, renewed interest from journalists, amateur sleuths, and forensic scientists has breathed new life into the case. In 2016, Norwegian authorities reopened the investigation, this time using modern science. They conducted isotope analysis on her teeth, tracing the chemical signatures in her enamel to pinpoint where she may have grown up. The results were stunning. They suggested she had likely spent her early years near the Franco-German border, possibly around Nuremberg or Alsace-Lorraine. This revelation narrowed the possibilities but didn't deliver answers. Facial reconstruction specialists created a digital model of what she may have looked like: stern, angular features with dark hair and sharp eyes. The image was released publicly in hopes that someone, somewhere, would recognize her. No one did. Then came the DNA push. Advanced techniques were used to extract a partial profile from preserved tissues, and samples were uploaded to international genealogy databases. But once again, the woman seemed to exist outside of every known record. No family matches, no cousins, nothing. If she had relatives, they either didn't know she existed or were no longer alive. Online forums and podcasts reignited public fascination. Reddit threads speculated about Soviet defector programs. Some suggested she had been part of a secret NATO operation that went wrong. Others believed she was a courier, smuggling state secrets through quiet Scandinavian borders under a rotating set of names. Some even pushed darker theories, that she had discovered something she wasn't meant to know, and was silenced before she could speak. Then there's the matter of the sealed documents. Several researchers claimed certain files related to her case were either missing or classified. One journalist who tried to access archived intelligence reports was told, "Those records don't exist anymore." Whether this was incompetence, coincidence, or a deliberate effort to bury the truth remains unknown. Half a century later, the world is still asking the same question: who was the Isdal Woman? And perhaps even more chilling, why has no one ever come looking for her? Today, the Isdal Woman rests beneath a plain gray headstone in Bergen, Norway. The grave is quiet, unvisited, marked only by the simple inscription, "Ukjent kvinne," unknown woman, no flowers, no photographs, just silence. The authorities buried her with full respect, yet with the haunting knowledge that not a single person had come forward to claim her, to name her, or even to mourn her. But her story refuses to fade. Decades after her mysterious death, the Isdal Woman has become an icon of unsolved mystery, a real-life enigma that captivates anyone who stumbles upon it. She has been the subject of documentaries, podcasts, and forensic reconstructions. Her case has inspired spy novels, academic research, and online rabbit holes that go on for hours. Every new theory seems more incredible than the last, and yet, none have ever led to a definitive answer. Some believe she was a tragic loner, burdened by mental illness and driven to erase herself from the world. Others remain convinced she was entangled in Cold War espionage, perhaps betrayed by her own handlers or silenced by a rival agency. And then there are those who think her identity was never real to begin with, that she was a ghost of the state, a person created for a single purpose, then discarded without a trace once that purpose was fulfilled. Despite all the advancements in forensics, technology, and global communication, no one has ever found the missing piece of her puzzle. Her story is a reminder of just how easily a person can disappear, even in a world full of records, cameras, and data. She moved like a shadow, died in silence, and left behind only questions. Over 50 years have passed since the Isdal Woman was found burned in the Norwegian forest. And yet, we still don't know her name. We don't know where she came from, who she loved, what secrets she carried, or why someone, maybe even she herself, went to such extreme lengths to erase her existence. Was she a spy caught in the invisible wars of the Cold War? A woman on the run from something darker than any of us can imagine? Or was she a ghost of bureaucracy, buried by the very systems designed to track us? What's most unsettling is this. In a world obsessed with identity, this woman slipped through every crack.